This is an iHeart podcast.
Lowe's knows Sundays are for football, so tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Bounty and Swiffer cleaning products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
Get almost anything you need delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get chicken parmesan delivered. A little escape? No. A delicious bowl of grapes? Yes. Yes, that. An afternoon stroll? Sorry, no. A burrito bowl? Happily, yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Brian Drake is a podcast host and writer at Fantasy Points who also does work at Fantasy Pros, The Huddle, SiriusXM, and a ton of other places too. He's a past FSWA Football Article of the Year winner. He's a dad. He's an Eagles fan, and he loves Syracuse as well. These are his late round perspectives.
I feel like 10 minutes ago, you and I were in Canton, Ohio, having some adult beverages and drafting in the Kings Classic. And now it's like pushing for the playoffs. Make sure you have handcuffs. And it's just, it goes by so fast when you're in this content grind because Thursday night becomes the weekend, becomes Monday night recaps, waiver wire. Yeah. It never ends.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I like feel like it was yesterday that because we did the Kings Classic. We do it on Saturday. You know, you host one of the drafts typically, right? So I think you hosted the auction this year, right? So you were on SiriusXM for that, and then you drafted the snake, right?
Yeah. So I have a partner in the league, Ryan Hallam and Kevin Tompkins from Fighting Chance Fantasy. So I let those guys do the auction. I take care of the snake, which I love the auction. Listen, one of my best friends is Drew Davenport. I gotta give love to the auction guys, but if I have the opportunity to do radio, I'm going to do radio because it's my first love, and you don't get that opportunity very often. So I pass up the league to get on the air and stroke my ego for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And so, you know, you sit there and you kind of analyze the draft as it's going on. You know, I've talked about the Kings Classic on here as guests. You know, I had Jim Coventry on a couple weeks ago and such, and we chatted about it. But then the next day, which is the actual expo, you know, at the Hall of Fame, you guys are still doing the SiriusXM thing. And you and I hopped on for about 10, 15 minutes with you and Bob Harris at one point. Maybe it was only like 5 to 10. But I remember like talking about my drafts because my snake draft, because I drafted Chris McCaffrey like 7th overall or something. And we were kind of discussing that, but it literally feels like that was like last week. It's crazy.
It is. It goes by so fast. That whole expo weekend goes by in a blink. I look forward to it all year long. And then it's just up and gone, and I'm already driving back to Syracuse from Canton, Ohio. But that's fantasy football season. And if you don't stay on top of it, and if you don't hustle on the waiver wire and making trades, it can get away from you quickly. And all of a sudden you're staring at a team that has no chance of making the playoffs, and you're frustrated and you stop listening to content. Don't stop listening to this.
Please.
Folks.
But, please keep listening. Please.
Yeah, but we see that all year long is once people kind of get out of it, they throw their hands up in the air and they're like, forget about it. I'm done. It's over with. But you can fight till the end in fantasy football. Yeah. Too many people give up way too early. Like, you can win out. It happens.
Yeah. And there's teams that were really good in your league that are now terrible. And there's teams that were terrible in your league that are really good now. And yeah, it can happen. It can happen super fast. There's always things shifting and moving. By the way, I got to throw this out there. How great is it that a Pitt guy and someone in Syracuse can have this discussion cordially and you know, just have a good time on an hour-long podcast?
Oh, well, I mean, we're definitely not talking football. Someone here in Syracuse. Our season never really got started here in Syracuse, but we're on to basketball. We're on to basketball, and about halfway through that season, we'll be on to lacrosse.
Yeah.
So that's how it goes here. How is Pitt doing this year? I mean, are you guys decent? Bad? Terrible?
We're decent. We're decent. We had a big game. Game day was in Pitt last weekend.
I saw that.
And they just got smoked by Notre Dame, which was expected. I mean,
that'll be us this weekend.
Yeah, like I had no thought that they were going to actually take down Notre Dame. But it also didn't really matter from like an ACC standpoint because they have a couple games coming up that they'd have to win. I mean, I think their college football playoff probability right now is probably like 5%. So there's still some hope there if we can somehow win out.
Syracuse has never hosted college football, college game day for football.
Yeah.
And we're like one of 4 Power 5 schools that have never hosted it.
Interesting.
So, you didn't obviously go to the game day this past weekend, but how cool would that have been if you were in college or just even a little younger and you can go experience that?
Yeah. I don't think that it was, I don't think it was there when I was there, which was like, I was there when I was at Pitt when Pitt basketball, when Pitt Syracuse was really fun, Big East time, like when Pitt was like a 1 seed consistently and
you guys were great.
Lost in the Elite Eight to Scotty freaking Reynolds and Nova. And it was horrible. But yeah, I mean, like it'd be awesome. The one thing with Pitt is that admittedly, like the football scene isn't as strong as the basketball scene just because they play at, now Acrisure, used to be Heinz Field. And where Pitt is at from a campus perspective, it's in Oakland. It's this area in Pittsburgh. And it's like a good, it's not just like a mile. It's not like a walk away to get to the stadium. I mean, you have to literally we would take buses, like students bus over to the stadium. So it doesn't have the same kind of like college vibe as you would ideally want. Now, when I was there, Pitt played in the Big East Championship and lost to Cincinnati. It was a crazy game, like really, really crazy game. And for that game, like it was sold out and it was crazy, like 60,000 plus people. But most games are still, it's just not the same kind of college vibe if you were to go to like Happy Valley or something like that.
I know. And I wish I had that experience with college. And a lot of people think that I went to Syracuse, but I actually didn't. Go to Syracuse. I was accepted to Syracuse. This is a story that I'm sure a lot of you guys can attest to. Is I was accepted to Syracuse. I was going to go to the Newhouse School and become a broadcaster, like everybody you see on TV these days. I go to orientation with my father, who is a truck mechanic. Right, most blue collar family. Grew up on the north side of Syracuse. Went to impoverished high schools. If you saw the scores for these schools, you don't know how anybody ever got out of them. But they hand a piece of paper to my father. They go, Mr. Drake, this is what it's going to cost to send your son to Syracuse for 4 years. And he looks at me, and I had this program that I had over like a 1,200 in my SATs, and I had like a 90 average. So you get all this admitted aid and all this. He looks at me, he goes, I wouldn't sign that.
Yeah.
He looked at this 6-figure number that I would be saddled with for probably still to this day. And he goes, I wouldn't do that. So sight unseen, I went 45 minutes up the road to Oswego State University, where Steve Levy, Linda Cohn, Al Roker, those kind of guys went. Basically, anybody who couldn't afford to go to Syracuse just goes up the road to Oswego. And that's where I ended up going. But my heart is here in Syracuse. I've been a fan since I was a little kid, season ticket holder, and I still am a huge Syracuse diehard to this day, as evident by me being the only person in fantasy to know who Oronde Gadsden was before about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, so did you always had in your hearts to like, because obviously Syracuse, they're known for like broadcast journalism and stuff. And is that something that, I mean, like even when you hopped on this, it's just like you have such a radio voice, right? Like you are so good on air and the voice that you like. I'm much more of just like the casual podcaster type, right? And but you have the radio voice, like you have it in you. Is that something that you always wanted to do?
Yeah. And my best friend and I were going to go to Syracuse together. He actually did go. And I wrote an article about this and it was posted on the Huddle a few weeks ago. He died in a car accident. He was a news reporter and sports anchor here in Syracuse and just kind of getting going. And he went to school with the Anish Shroffs and all these Syracuse guys that you see being big time radio and TV personalities today. Like that would be him.
Yeah.
But he was hit and killed by a drunk driver 20 years ago now. So I wrote an article about that, and I always wanted to go do that. And somewhere along the line, and I remember this, before he died, he told me, I had a job, I was working for a beer wholesaler. And I kind of I needed, you got to get money. There's no money in media. There's none at all. So he told me, he goes, you're never going to get back into this. He's like, you're going to go and you're going to work at Budweiser and you're going to get married to the girl that I'm married to now with kids. And he goes, that's where your life is going to go. And he was right, because you can give up on this dream so easily. And that's when I got back into fantasy football and it allowed me to get into podcasting. It sort of was that glimmer of hope that I could do what I always wanted to do. And when I started my podcast back in 2017 with Dwayne McFarland, we did the Fantasy Football Hustle. We did that for 5 years. Somehow never won an FSWA award for best podcast because some other guy on this pod kept winning it all the time. But we did get nominated. But that's what got me back into this is fantasy football. So I have this fun game that we love to thank for getting me back into doing the radio, doing podcasts, buying expensive microphones, and having a little bit of fun here in my basement.
Yeah, was that sort of like your journey into the space? Like, did you get going in 2017-ish timeframe, or was it before that?
Yeah, this is a funny story of how I got started. So I was on Twitter back when Twitter was fun. This is 2017. Yeah. And I'm following who is now my friend, Ryan Hallam, who has worked for Fantasy Alarm, and he started fightingchancefantasy.com. He posts, he goes, hey, I need someone to do a fantasy football mock draft because Steve Gardner of USA Today, whatever happened, he bailed. He couldn't do it. So I happened to be sitting on my couch. I responded, I go, I'll do it. He thought he was talking to other content creators or other fantasy guys. I was just Joe Blow sitting on my couch. Awesome. So I joined this draft with all these experts. And then afterwards, he's like, who do you write for? I don't write for anybody. I'm a beer salesman. And he goes, well, do you want to write for me? And I ended up doing a mock-up of the draft. And from there, and Ryan has helped launch so many careers, and he's the most selfless guy in fantasy. I love him for the opportunities that he gave myself, Dwayne, Kevin Tompkins, Casey Kasem, Corbin Young, who's won multiple FSWA awards. A lot of guys and gals came through Fighting Chance Fantasy. So I started writing there, and I said, I want to do a podcast. I love radio. The podcasts are just getting going. So I start doing the pod, and he goes, you got to find a guest. And I went out on Twitter and I found this guy who was putting out all these crazy stats, Dwayne McFarland. He had like 200 followers at the time.
Some dude named Dwayne McFarland. Yeah.
Right. So I DM him like, hey brother, you want to do this pod with me? And it's the debut episode. He's like, sure. I mean, he's just kind of speaking into the ethos. Nobody knows who he is.
Right.
And he and I do the first show. And when it was done, I go to Ryan. I go, okay, cool. Let's find who are we going to have on next week? He goes, no. He goes, that's the show. He goes, get that guy back.
Yeah.
So Dwayne and I just sprung up a friendship. And I talked to Dwayne this past week. He called me. We talked for like an hour in my office, and we did that show for 5 years. And I quickly learned the secret to success in any business. Attach yourself to insanely smart people.
Yeah, right.
And they will make you look phenomenal.
Yeah.
I got to work with Dwayne for 5 years, and now I'm so proud of what he's done at Fantasy Life and all the stops along the way from Football Guys, PFF, ETR, and it helped our show. And we got to have incredible guests, and we had a podcast that people thought we had this legit podcast, JJ, because I went and took all of my contacts from guys I knew at Syracuse or my buddy worked at SNY. He's the director of everything at SNY. He made us this insane video opening for free that would cost a normal agency $10,000.
Yeah.
My buddy, John Gay, who was a major market DJ, I went to him and I said, can you create the opening and bumpers and all of that so our imaging sounds good?
Yeah.
So when we came out, people thought we were like this major to do, and we weren't. We were just literally two schlubs in our basement. We had insane guests. The only person in fantasy we didn't have on that show was you.
Yeah, that's actually true now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I don't think I ever hopped on.
No, we had Clay and Evan Silva and I mean, you name it. They all came on for Dwayne. I mean, I was just there for the ride.
You stop.
But it was his great work that got our doors opened, and I'm forever grateful for him. And from there. Once he went on and did his thing, what he's doing now with Fantasy Life, I decided, I didn't decide. I'm like, I got to do something here.
Yeah.
I want to keep doing the show. Joe Dolan, who I met through the expo.
Yep.
He and I became friends, and we did a pod together. That led to me joining Fantasy Points. From there, I hooked up with my man, John Hansen, who I do a podcast with now, the Fantasy Points podcast, and it got me on Sirius XM. I've done shows there. I did the morning show last year, which was a dream come true. And I did a show with Andrew Erickson from PFF for a while. And It's a blast for a kid who never thought he would get back into radio to say to folks, I'm going to do the morning show on a nationwide broadcast on Sirius XM was incredible. And it only lasted a year. I have a 9-to-5 job, so it just kind of doesn't really work with what I'm doing right now, but it's amazing. And I have nothing but the friendships I made in fantasy football from going to the expo, from being a friend on Twitter, and just kind of never saying no to things.
Yeah.
I guess that worked out.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. It's honestly, it's an encouraging story for anyone who's like in a position where they have that 9-to-5 and they just want to kind of do something that they're passionate about. And like, clearly you have that passion for, like, you're one of the rare breeds though, that it's not just fantasy analysis that passion's coming from. It's also just the medium that you're able to talk through. And that's so important, because I'm telling you, when I do radio hits and cause I've done tons of them in my lifetime. It's just when you're doing all, cause I've done TV, I've done radio, I've done podcasts, I've done, whatever the case may be. And like, I know what I enjoy doing most, which is this kind of medium. And you have to have a certain mindset when you go on radio, or when you're doing, even when you and I are chatting with Bob, at the expo, and you have constantly have people in your ear and stuff like that. And, you're like, okay, we have 30 seconds. We got to wrap this up, etc. Like, that's a skill. That's a skill that people don't understand has to go on and happen with people that are doing things on there. And then there's also the, like, I'm always in awe of Field Yates, right, on TV. Like, he's just flawless on TV. And I don't say that because he's a friend and I'm trying to suck up to him. I've said this all the time, that like, his skill set, obviously he knows ball, but he's just so good at doing what he does and communicating these ideas the way that he does. And I think just that side of things is really important. Like, being able to know how you want to talk about things and the way in which you want to talk about those things, whether it's how I'm doing it on the Late Round podcast or someone sitting on radio and doing it, that's all important. And that's what this package is all about whenever you're going out and doing fantasy content.
And you really hit a sweet spot with, my favorite thing you do is the transaction episode. I love listening to that because it's packaged in a way I can listen to it on my ride to work, make sure that, because I'm kind of doing that work as well, but I want to make sure I'm not missing something.
Sure.
So I love listening to it. And this is something we had to work with on The Hustle, is let's give people really advanced analytics, but package it in a way where we're not scaring them off so much to, targets per route run or some of these advanced things out there that I've talked to a lot of my friends who are guys in their mid 40s and like, hey, did you hear this? Did you understand it? And I found that really in fantasy, people just want the smoking gun. People are lazy in general.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Just tell me who to pick up.
Sure.
Tell me who to play this week. I know in fantasy, we want to educate people so they can kind of do it themselves and have the answers to the test in front of them. But oftentimes they just tell me who to pick up, bro.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pick up Luther Burden this week? Tell me why he's good. His route share is increasing the past few weeks, blah, blah, blah. Great. But I think sometimes we can get too lost in the data and analytics world in fantasy. So I appreciate what you do of trying to keep it simple while also telling people, well, this is why I came to this conclusion because of the numbers behind it.
No, I appreciate that. And it's true. There's always going to be a subset of people that get angry at me, even where they're like, I don't need to read a 200-page draft guide when I just want you to give me your rankings. And it's like, all right.
Yeah.
If you just want my rankings, then just go to the Patreon or whatever, do whatever you want if you want that. But, like, if you really want to dig in and like love this game on a deeper level and like find this hobby and, like, as corny as that sounds and as silly as that sounds, to like love that game on a deeper level, it's a hobby. It's no different than like really getting into a video game or like really getting into movies or something. It's a hobby that we all love. And if you want to dig in and like get better and there's a payoff at the end, realistically, something that you don't necessarily get in some of these other hobbies and such, there are avenues to learn too. It's important to kind of have that balance between the two.
And I tell people all the time, and I wrote some articles. One of them actually, I think, got nominated for an FSWA award. It was about content creators against engagement farmers, because you see a lot of that in social media and Twitter, especially when Twitter was kind of a big deal. It's not really anymore, but the folks who engage just to engage and kind of game the system And here's the thread bros. I told you last summer, which I love making fun of that. Last summer, I told you to draft this guy.
Yeah.
But there are folks who have figured out the algorithm, and whether it's on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram, and you might not have any idea who they are. Like, you are a big name in this space, right, JJ? You know, people respect you. They know you do great work. You could go over to YouTube, and this happened to me last year.
Yeah.
I was sitting in my hot tub, and I'm scrolling through, and some guy is answering start-sit questions, and people are paying him these, like, what do they call them, super chats, whatever, and they're paying him like $5-10 a pop. And this guy I've never heard of in my life is just raking in the dough because he's gamed the algorithm. He had super slick graphics. So I've always told people, you can do fantasy football content. You can be great at it. But until you get somebody who wants to pay you for that information, like, it's just a hobby at that point.
Yeah.
It's not really a job. So, you know, you got to take it for really what it's worth out there. And, it's getting harder and harder with AI and, you know, these conglomerates coming together, and people they don't want to pay for good content. I see people all the time. I've gone on job interviews for fantasy companies. Hey man, we want you to write 20 articles a day. We're going to pay you $5 an article. I'm like, brother, I got a wife, 2 kids, and a mortgage. Like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that. Not to sound like I'm a snob or something. I'm too good for it, but you also have to know the value of your time.
Of course.
So, you know, that it's tough out there. And, you know, kudos to you for starting your own business, really. And that had to be scary to say, I'm going to go out on my own and I'm going to do my own thing. And, now you got, Mr. Kitchens here helping you out. Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of, it's a 2-man band now, but
that's right.
It's scary, man. I've thought about that a million times. Like, hey, how can I go do this on my own and maybe bring in a team of content creators and kind of build something out? But I mean, that's a hard leap to make when you've got a couple of young kids and these bills keep coming in.
Of course. I was in a pretty fortunate position where, you know, I had the podcast and I had an audience, and the leap of faith wasn't as much of a leap as it could be for others and stuff. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But yeah, I mean, like, it's still a scary thing. Any entrepreneur, anyone going out on their own and like doing their own thing, it's obviously, there's a lot of question marks, but yeah, I mean, it's really good to hear your perspective on all that though, because I think that there's plenty of people. You know, I get emails weekly from people that are trying to do something in fantasy, that they're really interested in doing something, and hearing it from other people other than me, or, you know, me like sitting down with you for a 30-minute phone call, or, you know, emailing you back. It's good to hear all these different perspectives. This is late round perspectives after all.
I love this. I thought about doing a show like this a while back because I'm a big Howard Stern fan. I love the way that Howard goes about doing his interviews with folks. And I often thought, and there's other people who have tried doing this sort of thing over the years, is, yeah, it's great. Oh, do you like this guy or that guy, or give me a sleeper? Like, that's great. But I've always loved finding people's process. And I find that infinitely more interesting if you sit down with, you know, a guy like a Field Yates or, you know, John Hansen or whoever, you know, Dwayne, and you find out like what makes them tick. What do they do? I'd love that, to hear that even with you, is when you sit down and you write that 15 transactions. Cause really when I, as a content creator, listen to that show, I go, all right, JJ writes an article and then he reads it. Like that's pretty much.
It's like my notes for the actual episode. Yeah. Like, you know, a lot of my shows are, like, because people are like, how scripted is it and stuff? And it's like, parts of it are clearly scripted because I need to get certain data out and it needs to be like really succinct and stuff. But the 15 transactions one is even more so because I already have the thing written. So obviously I'm just going to read a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. That's the key, is finding how do people come up with what they want to talk about and you know, being unique. I think in today's day and age, you know, you can really microcast and find a niche. There's so many folks who are, or were, like, just say NFL beat writers. And now they've kind of even trimmed that down. They said, I'm going to make a Patreon or whatever else is out there these days. And it's just going to be about, let's say, the Eagles. Right. I'm an Eagles fan. Yeah. And there are so many of these folks who are, they can't get paid by the Philadelphia Inquirer anymore or whoever, but they found fans will pay for niche content if it's very, very good. Yep. And same is true for fantasy football. And it could be true for anything. You could be into chess or hunting. Who knows? If you're that, you know, narrow casting to an audience, you can make money in it. And I think that's where I've failed over the years, is trying to be you can be kind of everything to everyone, is just like generic host guy. And I've been pigeonholed as that, and people go, oh, you're great, but you're just a host. And I see there's so many talented guys. Like, I love my guy, Paul Kelly. I love Mike Dempsey on Sirius XM. And these guys are phenomenal hosts who I don't think get enough credit for their own content or their own takes, because they're so good at setting up someone else to get what they want out of it. It's not hard. You set guys up. It's like being a softball pitcher. You're just tee up. You know what these guys want to do and hit it out of the park. When Dwayne and I would do our show, sometimes people send, like, we have a show sheet. Like, you sent over, hey, we can talk about X, Y, and Z. Dwayne and I never once had a show sheet. I would text him, hey, we're going to record at 7:00 tonight. Cool. I knew he was going to be so prepared that, and it's the same thing with John Hansen. We do our show on Sunday night. We recap all the games. I know they're so prepared. I can tee them up. Like, I know where their head's going to go and what they're good at covering. And I'm not going to lead them down a path to something that they don't want to talk about. So it's, this is my favorite stuff. I could talk content and theory all day long.
Yeah, no, I love it too. Obviously, I ran Numberfire and FanDuel's content business for a while, and that's the side that, like, people, from my perspective, that people don't see what I have come from. Obviously, now I'm just mostly just doing the content stuff and just producing it. But there was a time in my life where it was a lot of the management stuff and the strategic stuff and figuring out bigger media plans, as opposed to just like, yeah, I got this newsletter and podcast. I just got to get this stuff out and, the rankings and such. But I think that the moral here, though, is that there are a lot of ways in this industry to get yourself inserted depending on what your individual skill set is. And like I said, if you have a medium that you feel really comfortable with, like, in my opinion, double down on that. Like like I said, I've done like TV and stuff. Hate it with a passion. It's just not for me. It's just not something that I'm good at, and I like having more casual conversation. Even radio, I don't love doing radio just because it's a very, it's segmented the way that it is, and it's harder to get some of the more robust takes that I might have and talking points that I might have out. Whereas this, I'm like, yeah, if we go an hour, great. If we go an hour and 5 minutes, not the end of the world either. I can at least be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, and the more that folks can do different things as well. If you're listening to this and you're a wannabe creator, or you're just getting started, if you can edit video, if you can edit audio, if you can make thumbnails, like, that all goes a long way, because there's so many people that can't. I know when we first started doing our shows and things, I would outsource the thumbnails and because I wasn't good at it. And I'm like, someone's got to help me out here, because I knew that you needed a good thumbnail to kind of get going. And now that's a whole gimmick, is, the goofy face on a thumbnail on YouTube. But yeah, there's so much content out there for folks, and there's no gatekeepers anymore. Yeah. You don't need someone to necessarily hire you to say, like, oh, how do I work for Fantasy Points? Or, I work for Fantasy Pros. I do some work for them now too. And you don't have to. You have Instagram, you got Twitter, you got YouTube. Right. You can start a YouTube channel tomorrow. Right. And all of a sudden you can become the next big thing if you're just consistent and good at it. And don't let anybody tell you no. You got to fail. I listen to so many David Goggins motivational speeches. Yeah. And it's just about failure. You got to keep trying and failing, because the worst thing you can do is just not try, not get off the couch. So to anybody out there who wants to try to become the next JJ, or on a much, much lower level, the next Brian Drake, you got to just get off the couch. It's advice to myself, really. Right. Yeah, totally. Kind of what I'm trying to hype myself up in the mirror. No, totally. All right, let's talk a little fantasy, little like strategy and just like high level takeaways from what's gone on this year. So obviously hindsight's in our favor right now. It's week 12. We've seen a lot of football this year, but what's something that you look back and you think fantasy managers just did wrong this year during draft time? Like, it could just be like they went after late round quarterbacks and they shouldn't have, or they did elite tight end they shouldn't have. Like, what's your takeaway, and what do you think that people might take into 2026 as a result? I think partly fantasy content creators led the casual player fan down this road. And it's because we are so excited to do best ball and we get this best ball brain, and that bleeds into redraft. It impacts ADP and it pushes up players with some narratives that we create in April, May, June. So I think we overlooked a lot of players who were healthy and in great spots. So of course I'm referring to Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor. These are guys who finished at number one at their position at some point in their career. And these guys during the summer, I know CMC crept up later, had like round 2 ADPs.
Yeah.
So I think we looked at a lot of situations where guys had like garbage time touches, or maybe they weren't even that talented, but the volume was there for whatever situation. Chase Brown comes to mind, Brian Thomas Jr. We assumed that volume would be there again this season, but we didn't take into consideration maybe quarterback play. Was Mac Jones, the creator, Brian Thomas Jr., Chase Brown. So I think, we just looked at the wrong things. Instead of looking at who's really good at fantasy football, we got to stop looking at who needs planetary alignment to come through. And I think maybe next year we'll look at it and just go, hey, are you good at fantasy football? And I say that because I've got a guy in my home league, shout out to the Alcoholic Haze, who has made like 4 moves all season long, but he's in 4th place and fighting for the playoff spot. I don't think the guy pays attention to the league at all. Like I've had to text him like, bro, you need to set a lineup this week.
Yeah.
But what he did, he drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. He's got JSN on his team. He didn't drop Travion Henderson. So all of a sudden, he just drafted good players.
Yeah.
And he hasn't dropped them at all. So I think that's what we have to overlook, is trying to wish cast ourselves into who the next big name is going to be. Just draft good players, man.
Yeah, it's really easy to get carried away with certain narratives with especially younger players, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I think there's a balance, of course, because we're going to see, rookies and players who haven't broken out yet break out, right? It's going to happen. And, if you look at how low the odds are of veterans doing well in the double-digit rounds, then you might as well just go after rookies, et cetera. That kind of notion. But there is definitely, and I think that like the best ball stuff is an interesting thing that I think a lot of season long analysts are going to bring up during the off season, is that, it's the slappies, right? The best ball slappies who go out there and they start touting the Jaden Blues and the Brashard Smiths of the world, because in that environment, it might not be that bad of an idea, because you might get a few usable weeks from those players, even if they don't have full-time roles. But when you're looking at a managed season long league, how reliable are those guys truly going to be, right? Like what is the true ceiling there? And maybe like I'm just using those guys as examples. Maybe they're not the best examples of in the world, but I'm guilty of it too. Like there are these ebbs and flows during draft season. And I noticed that this year, especially with my draft guide, when I would add and remove players from like my players to target and avoids list and stuff. And it's like, how am I feeling in that moment? Am I, I remember I added at one point Elijah Arroyo to the mix, right? Like back in like late July or something. And then I'm like, looking back, I'm like, I didn't really need it. Like no one lost their league because of that. It doesn't matter. It's a last round pick. It's just not a big deal if you went that route, if you just threw that dart. And even in the blurb, I talked about how like we would have some idea of his usage after like week 1. But, it's still one of those situations where it's like, we do need to realize and think about more deeply how this game is actually being played. And it's that in 99% of leagues, you don't even need to show your hand with Elijah Arroyo. You just need to know in the back of your head that he exists and he might be a talented player, that later in the season, you be ahead of things when things start to trend in his direction, if things start to trend in his direction.
I'll tell you one player who I got in a fight on Twitter with folks with, and it was Brashard Smith. Yeah. Because people were saying like, oh, he's running routes in camp. Like, you got to watch. He's going to be the next Jerick McKinnon. And I said, I'm like, no, he's not. They've got 3 backs there. Like, they're never going to use this kid. He can't run the football. Like, you're doing your readers or listeners a disservice telling them in a redraft form. Now, if Dynasty best ball, great. Go shoot the moon with Brashard Smith. You can't tell folks in a redraft league to go draft Brashard Smith, because it's not going to, like, you need so many things to align. And they almost have, with Pacheco going down and Kareem Hunt's kind of Kareem Hunt, and they're looking for some playmakers on that running game, and he still can't be usable for fantasy. So that's one of the names that just popped in.
I think like, again, like we've like and I'm thinking about myself because I can only speak for myself. But when I'm thinking about players to target and like late round dart throws to throw, I need to, and this is something I'm definitely going to be changing in the draft guide next year. I need to almost categorize those players as more of like a keep an eye out for / target, actually target and get in your league. You know what I mean? Like Brashard Smith being a keep an eye out for, even early on Ja'Cory Krosky before the the ADP rose, like keep an eye on him. Like it's certainly not a bad idea to say like, okay, yeah, like his ADP might rise. You might gain a little equity if you're drafting right now. Like keep an eye on this player versus let's go attack, because when we say let's go attack, we're almost watering down the other players that are also being bucketed in that same group. For instance, a J.K. Dobbins, right? Who was another.
Yeah.
So if I have, a JCM or, pre-ADP spike and a J.K. Dobbins, then someone might see that as interchangeable, but it's not interchangeable at all. And all of that's being driven by my rankings and such. And you can just look at those and get an idea of like where to draft those guys. But I do think that like having that kind of contextual stuff and that kind of nuance is very, very important when we're discussing, who we should be targeting and not targeting.
There's so many folks out there, and I consider a lot of my friends that's the target audience for me. I look at my friends. I'm 45 years old, and my buddies who are all, they're middle aged. They got wife, kids, life's happening. They love playing fantasy football, but it's not, their whole life. They're not like a DFS degenerate, and that's great if you have that. But I think a lot of content, at least what I do, is geared towards your casual home league player. These guys have no idea who Brashard Smith is.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. They don't know who some of these folks are. So when they hear some of these names, that's why it's good to say, just keep it in the back of your mind.
Right.
And you don't have to necessarily go target this player, but because they're not following college football. They're not watching, the Big 12.
Yeah, those guys aren't going to get drafted. Like Brashard Smith's not getting drafted in a normal league. He's just not. Like he wasn't drafted in he was. I mean, I drafted him in the Kings Classic leagues because the Kings Classic leagues are absurd. Like they're
14 teams.
Yeah, 14 teams, really deep rosters and stuff. Like our waiver wire. Like I remember a few weeks ago getting excited that I got Devon Vele for like $3 off the waiver wire, and I don't care about Devon Vele in most instances, Although he now is like more of the clear-cut wide receiver too in New Orleans.
Brother, I dropped $40 on Tez Johnson and did a backflip. Yeah. I spent all my fab because I lost Mike Evans. I'm like, oh my God, I got to do something here. Because there's a relegation factor in the Kings Classic. People don't realize that, but there is. So my team, slowly we're coming on. We've won a couple of games in a row here. You're doing well. You won it last year. Aren't you like first or second place?
I won it last year and I'm in first this year. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I had a really tough loss last week though. Like I went up against the downside of having these deep rosters is you go up against these players that would never be started in normal lineups and stuff. So I went up against, not only did I face Josh Allen, who put up like a 44 burger, but I also faced both Giants running backs against the Packers, and they both had very usable performances. And I lost by like 2 as a result, but I'm still in first, still sitting in first.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'm trying to sneak it. I went from like, oh my God, this team is terrible, I might come in last place, to now I'm like, I'm a game out of the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's still pretty tight. Yeah. It's all still pretty tight.
Lowe's knows Sundays are for football, so tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Bounty and Swiffer cleaning products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL. This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Apple Card members can earn unlimited daily cash back on everyday purchases wherever they shop. This means you could be earning daily cash on just about anything, like a slice of pizza from your local pizza place or a latte from the corner coffee shop. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app to see your credit limit offer in minutes. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
So you mentioned what you think people might have done wrong. We talked about the slappies and stuff. Is there anything that you're going to take into 2026 based on what you've seen this year that you might change versus some other seasons that you've played?
It's funny because this kind of goes with your whole gimmick here is the late round quarterback. And for maybe the last 2-3 years, I've been on the train of, and I know you've been pushing this as well. Hey, middle rounds, round 3, 4, 5, get that kind of the end of the rushing quarterback, the Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, because they just offer that premier upside. But I think you're missing out on a level of player, maybe in that range, a JSN where you could have just waited a little bit later and gotten the Drake May that everybody knew was going to break out. I have leagues now. I'm starting Flacco. I'm starting Jacoby Brissett, and you're really not losing all that much. So I think, I'm not saying I'm going to go back to late round quarterback, but I'm going to not be the first guy in my league to take a quarterback. And also, if I can do anything else, it's to be more patient. I'm a guy who likes to make 1,000 moves in my league. Like in my home league here that I care more about than breathing, I drafted Woody Marks. I drafted Bashal Tootin. I drafted all these guys. Like people didn't even know who they were when I'm calling out the stickers, right? And now, of course, none of them are on my roster. They're starting for other teams, and I'm sitting here trying to pick up, Tyrell Shavers, for my wide receiver 3 tonight.
Yeah. I mean, look, it is difficult, and that's something that I've really tried to preach over the last few years because doing late round fantasy football has really opened my eyes to the way that the everyday player plays, because I'm super active in Discord and talking to people literally constantly throughout the day. And I see how they react to news items, and I see how they react to games. And it's opened my eyes so much to the fact that like patience really is the number one trait of a good fantasy manager. Just being able to ride it out and stick with what you know is, and I wouldn't say that like you do that no matter what. It's really about patience and timing, right? It's about understanding when it is time to give up on a player and so on, and the type of player that you would be giving up on. If it's a rookie, you'd be more patient with rookies than you would a veteran player, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a really, really good call out to make. Let me ask you this about where we're at right now in the fantasy season. The NFL, there's going to be teams that are just out of the playoffs by the time championship week happens, even semifinal week happens in fantasy football. Do you ever get nervous about teams shutting down players, like truly shutting them down? Are there any players? This is a question I get all the time. Are there any players that you're nervous about this year that might get shut down as we inch into the fantasy playoffs?
So this goes back to a tried and true theory that I've said for years about fantasy football, and it's don't hitch your wagon to players on bad teams. And it sounds very, very simple, but at the end of the day, if you have players and you look around, you're like, I got a lot of players on the Commanders, or I got, guys on, just pick a bad team, Houston or whatever, teams that aren't great. And then you're like, oh my God, like what could happen here? But you also can't play scared. Now, will Jaden Daniels return? I don't know. Well, I wouldn't bring him back.
Right.
The same, I guess, could be said for Joe Burrow. It looks like Joe Burrow could potentially come back. And I love that. But there are situations where I look at a guy like Breece Hall, and Breece Hall is an impending free agent. He does not want to be in New York next year. Who's to say Breece Hall just all of a sudden he's like, the calf is a little tight today. The last few weeks of the season, and all of a sudden he gets shut down. So I think that's why you need to be in a position where if you have, handcuffs or that position of flexibility where you can load up maybe on some running backs or receivers that can still play, you have to be paying attention out there. But for the most part, no, I don't really pay too much attention to if somebody gets shut down, because let's say, hey, it's week 16 or 17. If you're in a good league with a good commissioner, you should be the only team or two still being able to pick up players off the waiver wire. So you should have options available to you at that point. Like if you're in a league and like the guy in the toilet bowl can pick up players, like that's ridiculous. That rule has to get changed because you're not helping anybody there. Where the guy playing for 12th place is adding the hot waiver wire running back of the week. That's nonsense. Yeah, no,
I think that it's one of those like topics that gets overinflated, because if you think back, like how often does that really, maybe it happens once a year, like maybe, my only hesitation is like when a player is on a bad team and is already hurt. Like one player who comes to mind is like Garrett Wilson, right?
Oh yeah.
Where I'm like, is there really a benefit to Garrett Wilson? Like, obviously, the other thing too is that like people have to always remember these guys are professionals. Like this is their job, and they want to play because they're football players. This is what they do. And so like if Garrett Wilson is 100% healthy and he feels great, they're going to play Garrett Wilson more than likely. But if there's any doubt, like any doubt in your mind or their mind that something could happen, then they're going to err on the side of caution in those scenarios.
I had a guy, this is last week, a guy I'm in a league with, and I'll give him a shout. His name is Boy Green. He does a huge Jets podcast and YouTube. He has, all sorts of guys on this show. He is as plugged into the Jets as anybody. He sends me a trade where I would get Garrett Wilson. He goes, hey, listen, you can stick him on your team for the playoffs. You got a secret weapon here. And I'm like, wait a minute. If you're selling Garrett Wilson, the antenna has gone up here. So that's a great point. But again, it goes back to if your trade deadline is this week, don't tie yourself to players on really bad teams. If you've got guys on the Falcons aren't going anywhere with Kirk Cousins. I would be looking to sell whoever I could to get any value from if they were on the Atlanta Falcons right now.
All right, let's play this game that I've been doing where we do this player or this player rest of season. And we're going to do George Pickens, who is, I think he just came out. I think that was the best game of his career. What he just did on Monday night. He just looked like he was just a monster in that game. Mm-hmm. But we'll play George Pickens versus X player rest of season. And we'll kind of go through the logic and stuff like that. So we'll start George Pickens versus Ladd McConkey.
What's great is I actually traded for George Pickens this year, and he's crushing it again in my big league of record here. This guy's wide receiver 4. He has of his last 7 games, only 2 of them under 9 targets. So I look at Ladd McConkey. Here's the problem with Ladd McConkey. Like this week he's on bye. Mm-hmm. So I don't love the fact that their offensive line is terrible. You want to talk about a team pulling a guy. What happens if Justin Herbert gets hurt? They're just sick of him getting beat up. So I would rather have George Pickens there because I think that the Cowboys are going to be in a situation where they want to throw the football more, less mouths to feed. McConkey still has Gadsden and they still have QJ and, heaven forbid they get Omari and Hampton back and he can run the football a little bit. So maybe they use Hampton to take pressure off of Herbert getting his brains beaten in. So I'm going to take Pickens.
Yeah, I'm with you. How about Rome Odunze versus Pickens?
Oh God, I don't want anybody on the Bears. It's an offense that spreads the ball around to 58 guys and none of them ever come through. No thanks.
All right, how about this one's kind of interesting. Now they're on bye this week, so that could be a tiebreaker, what have you. But Jalen Waddle versus George Pickens.
You know who one of my other receivers on that team is?
I'm assuming it's Waddle.
I talked about Jalen Waddle. Listen, Jalen Waddle has a great schedule down the stretch where I think he can come through. He's on bye right now, like you said. To be honest, I think it's a coin flip. I would lean towards Pickens because I think he has a better quarterback. And but you look at games here down the line with Cincinnati and Tampa. Yeah. The only thing that's, does Pittsburgh scare you at all? He's got the Jets, the Saints. So it's great. If you have Waddle, it's unbelievable. And you do a great job of talking about, fantasy adjusted schedule and all that kind of good stuff. I think I'm still going to go Pickens.
Yeah, I think I had I should have had my rest of season rankings up while I was doing this, but I think I had Pickens too. All right, here's now we're going to go. I've been only doing position by position, not only just with you over the last 3 guys, but with other guests too. But I think it's kind of interesting to get like other positions involved because that's usually how people are trading too, because you're trying to help multiple teams. George Pickens versus Bucky Irving. And right now we're recording this on Thursday. We've gotten very little news this week about Irving, aside from the fact that he's just kind of at practice, but there's not like a full participant kind of situation going on here.
Yeah, and it's funny. I hate to keep bringing up this random team that nobody cares about, but Bucky Irving's on that team as well. He came over to me in the trade with George Pickens because I love the playoff schedule.
Yes, it's great.
And listen, if you can get this Tampa team with a Bucky Irving at full strength where he is the 3-down back and he's catching the ball out of the backfield. And, look at some of these games. They've got Miami in championship week. You've got Carolina, Atlanta, and their hot and cold defense. This is a great opportunity. And I'm going to lean Bucky Irving here just because to me, it's hard I know it's harder to find an elite wide receiver on the waiver wire, but a difference making running back to your team can really put you over the top. And if you can get a 25-point outburst from Bucky Irving over, whoever you might be starting this week at that position, if you drafted Bucky Irving, he's probably your RB1 and he's been sitting on your bench doing nothing for you. So I hope you're still playoff relevant at this point. But what about you? Who would you take in that situation?
I think I had, again, I should have had my rankings. I can pull them up right now. I'm pretty sure I had Pickens ahead. But it's interesting because I do. I have him 2 spots ahead and I had him 1 spot ahead of Waddle. So this is all in the same group. The main reason for that is just the ambiguity. But I think that with Bucky Irving, if you're a team that is not in the playoffs, you might have to sell right now to just get something in this short term, because we have no idea when he's going to come back. But if you're in the playoffs, if you have a first round bye, if you're like locked in, I had a team like that and I traded for Bucky Irving last week with essentially bench assets. There's nothing better than having Bucky Irving sitting on your bench and not even needing him, because again, that schedule's amazing. His peripherals were unbelievable the first 4 weeks of the season. I do think when he comes back, we're going to see a little bit more of a split, probably with like Sean Tucker, speak of Syracuse.
Syracuse guy. Nobody talked up Sean Tucker more than me.
Oh my gosh. I'm such a Sean Tucker stan. I'm so excited about it. But
he's going to be somebody's starting running back next year. He's a restricted free agent. His third round, I don't know. They're not going to tender him. I mean, there's no point, but he should be a starting running back.
Yeah, very, very real chance.
Season.
Yeah.
He's a good player.
Very good player. And so, the only downside with Tucker is that they'll often just use, because Rachaad White, he has his flaws, but he is a decent pass catcher. And so they'll use him more in that role. And then Tucker, I think though, this week could easily see a 70% running back rush share and no one should flinch just based on what we saw last week and the way things are trending. But when Bucky Irving's back, I wouldn't, Irving had like a 75% running back rush share earlier this year per game before he got hurt, over like a 15% target share. You got to just hope, I think, that the target share kind of remains the same, because that's going to really give him that floor and that sustainability. And then maybe the rush share drops a little bit because they're worried about him getting banged up. And it's a little less risky, him as a receiver versus him between the tackles. But still, if you get 60% running back rush share and a 10% target share from Bucky Irving with that schedule, and I'll be talking about this on the mailbag episode if anyone's listened to that, but that to me is still very, very valuable with that schedule that they have. So if you want to take a chance, I understand going with Bucky Irving there.
It's definitely roster specific out there.
Yeah,
I'm sure you get all these folks in your DMs asking you questions of like, who should I trade X for? And you're like, I don't know. It depends what guys in your league need.
Right.
Who should I trade Deebo Samuel for? Like, I don't know, bag of potato chips. What do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
I don't know what the other team's needs.
Yeah.
Lowe's knows Sundays are for football. So tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Bounty and Swiffer cleaning products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
How about Ashton Jeanty versus George Pickens?
You know who I traded to get Bucky Irving earlier in the year on that team?
I'm assuming Ashton Jeanty.
You got it. Oh, did I love that? God, that's the best. Ashton Jeanty. I mean, this team is so bad
really
in
bad.
Las Vegas. I mean, you're talking about a guy last week, JJ, he had 6 rushing attempts. Now he's making it up a little bit with getting 8 targets, but that's not going to happen every week. I'm going to take George Pickens every day and twice on Sunday over Ashton Jeanty. I would take him over Brock Bowers probably at this point. I don't want anything to do with that Raiders offense.
I'm scared out of my mind about Ashton Jeanty because of the situation they're in and their schedule. The schedule's terrible.
Brutal.
Yeah. I mean, it could just really it could be really bad down the stretch. Yeah.
I would trade him. The problem is, what are you going to get for him at this point?
Yeah, you can't really do anything about it at this point.
No. Yeah. It's like folks out there trying to trade AJ Brown. What are you going to get out of AJ Brown? Like, who's dealing you anything of value for him?
Yeah. How about Justin Jefferson versus George Pickens?
Talk about another guy. See, Justin Jefferson at least has the name where if you want to try to trade him in your fantasy league, I don't trust JJ McCarthy at all out there throwing fastballs at guys from 5 yards away. I'll take George Pickens.
Yeah, I think that one to me is probably the closest one so far. Just because they're like, again, their schedule is so good that if JJ McCarthy does figure it out and it does click, which we sometimes see happen, I'm not super optimistic. I sent a tweet out. I've officially passed JJ McCarthy in the official JJ Power rankings after last week. I think I'm ranked like 8,470th or something now. But yeah, he's struggling. So I can understand someone not wanting Jefferson. How about Emeka Egbuka versus George Pickens?
Emeka Egbuka, by the way, is still like PPR wide receiver number 8. And, he had a down week a week ago. You look at what they have going forward. They're going to get back Bucky Irving. So maybe that could, spread the offense out, add a little consistency to the offense, allow them to create more on first down, sustain more drives. I still think I'm going to go Pickens here, though, JJ. That one's tight. This one's really tight for me, but you can see maybe it was Baker being injured or whatever it is. George Pickens isn't giving you a wide receiver 71 weeks like we got a few weeks ago.
Yeah, there's such a floor with that Dallas offense. There is. You got to feel good about it. How about Derrick Henry versus George Pickens?
Again, another guy who could get game scripted out of any game going and give you 6 points because all he did was run for 60 yards. Again, I love the schedule going forward.
Yeah.
It would depend on it. Do I need a running back in this time of year with that schedule coming up for Derrick Henry? If I needed a running back badly because I just lost whoever and I'm still kind of in the mix, I could make that trade.
Yeah. And here's the last one. Your Eagles, Saquon Barkley or George Pickens?
Oh boy, Saquon's on that same team too. Yeah. Everyone's going to know this. They're going to love and ride and die with my Alcoholic Haze fantasy team. Listen, it's been tough. The offensive line's beat up in Philadelphia. The OC is a dope. Oh. And it's crazy. I mean, you've got like 3 top 12 weeks on the season out of Saquon Barkley. But the schedule's so good really going forward. Really you know what though? I think the Eagles somehow figure it out. Give me Saquon Barkley.
Let's just talk about the Eagles really quick. Like, do you think they figure it out rest of the season? Do you think that, because there have been random sort of stretches, like around that time where they faced Minnesota and around there where they were more pass heavy. And then it seems like post bye, they've gotten back to their run heavy ways and their obnoxious ways. If you look at year over year numbers, they're running fewer plays because they don't have Kellen Moore anymore. And Kellen Moore loves to keep up pace a little bit. It's all by just a little bit, but it's enough to all add up. But there's less play action. There's fewer RPOs. There's all of these things, less motion, at the line. There's all these things that are a slight dip year over year, but it's adding up. And then you kind of look at the passing charts that like Next Gen Stats offers up and you see, there's just nothing going on like in the middle of the field. AJ Brown is very much stapled to the perimeter and we're just not seeing much going on, much creativity at all. Do you have hope as someone who obviously is very in tune with what's going on with the Eagles? Do you have any hope that they do get better? Do you think is it a Patullo thing or is it a talent thing going on there?
No, it's not a talent thing at all. Could you imagine if Sean McVay was calling an offense with Saquon Barkley, Skinny Batman, and AJ Brown with Jalen? I mean, the Eagles would score 60 points a week.
And then they were like right now they're bottom 10 in the league in percentage of drives that end up in scores, both field goals and touchdowns. I mean,
they lead the league in 3-and-out percentage. Yeah. I mean, it's a joke. You can just call the plays out. Now, I was just listening to Greg Cosell talk about the Eagles offense, and he said, this looks like a 9th grade offense.
Yeah.
And he said, it's 100% on scheme. When you look at the route concepts that these guys are running, it's just broken. And this is the Nick Sirianni offense that when Sirianni first was hired, again, Sirianni, not a play caller when he was hired by the Eagles, came in, tried to call plays. That didn't work. So they handed it off to Shane Steichen. Then they Shane Steichen gets hired. Let's bring in Brian Johnson. That was an abject failure because he was placed with, hey, run the Sirianni offense. Yeah. This Nick Sirianni offense does not work. They get rid of Brian Johnson. Hey, let's bring in
Kellen Moore.
Thank you. Kellen Moore is a name, by the way. This has happened to me for 3 years. Anytime I try to think of Kellen Moore's name, I somehow blank out. There is this blind spot in my brain. At one point, I had to write it down when I was doing the SiriusXM show because I would always forget his name. Yeah, I see it. I'm like, what is this guy's name?
My brain goes to Hayden Winks because they look the exact same. It's his 100% his doppelganger.
I'd let Hayden Winks call plays over.
100%.
Over Kevin Patullo at this point. But but here's the thing with the Eagles. They have a top 10 rest of season schedule. I was looking at Fantasy Pros because I did a video for Fantasy Pros that you'll see sometime tonight or tomorrow about buying the Eagles rest of season. They have a rest of season schedule that's top 10 at every position. It's number 1 for tight end and it's number 2 for wide receiver. And you get 2 matchups with the Commanders going forward. So Can this offense support 2 wide receivers and a tight end, though? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I think Philadelphia can win because they have, in my mind, the best defense in the league, and they have the best GM in the league. So they have the best talent in the league, and they just out-talent you and make just enough plays on offense to beat you. But once you get into the playoffs, they need home field advantage, because I don't want to go to Detroit. I don't want to go to SoFi.
Yeah.
Bring those teams out to Philly, though, and I think the Eagles have a great chance of getting back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay. I think one of the biggest storylines, if not the biggest storyline right now in fantasy, is the New England backfield. So I want to rapid fire go through some players with TreVeyon Henderson and do the same thing.
Oh, okay.
TreVeyon or these guys rest of season. TreVeyon or Zay Flowers rest of season.
Nobody craps on Zay Flowers in fantasy more than I do, and probably for no reason. He's fine.
He's fine.
But he's not great. Give me Henderson though all day.
How about Quinshon Judkins or TreVeyon Henderson?
I would drop Judkins if it meant I could have TreVeyon Henderson.
Okay. How about Tedero McMillan? This is an interesting one after last week's game versus TreVeyon Henderson.
Yeah, that one's a little tougher. But again, do I want to be tied to Bryce Young, who's not going to drop back and throw 40 times?
Right.
I'm still taking Henderson.
Yeah, I have Henderson ahead. Also, I do think with the Henderson stuff, it's one of those situations where you have to look at range of outcomes and say to yourself, okay, the median outcome might be this, but there is a high end outcome where they're just like, no, we're going to give them 70% of the team's running back rushes and a 12% target share. And if we see that, it's just rocket. I mean, speaking of great schedules, I mean, the Patriots running backs have an awesome schedule rest of season as well. Okay. TreVeyon or Breece Hall?
I don't think Breece Hall finishes the season. Like I said, he's going to fake some kind of injury. Henderson.
How about TreVeyon or DeAndre Swift?
I do like people buying Swift rest of season, even though their schedule's not the greatest, but his role is outstanding. That said, I'm going to take Henderson in every guy here, just because the upside is so great for a 30-point performance.
There might be one that's going to be pretty interesting. So George Kittle or TreVeyon Henderson?
It's tough to take a tight end. I love Kittle. I think Kittle's great.
Yeah,
it's tough to take a tight end there.
Yeah. Brock Bowers, you just mentioned that you're not super, like you're just low on Vegas. Would you go TreVeyon over Brock Bowers?
Yeah, because there's the guy we're going to talk about later who I think I could pick up off the waiver wire and stream for the rest of the season.
How about, okay, this is the one that I think is, we won't talk Ashton Genty because I know how you feel about Ashton Genty now.
Yeah.
Chase Brown or TreVeyon Henderson?
What could really help Chase Brown? If Samaje Perine I knew Samaje Perine's out for the rest of the season. I think I'm going to lean Chase Brown there because, again, schedule's great. We're getting Burrow back. And now we've got 3 straight weeks where he was a top 12 running back in fantasy, he being Chase Brown. So I think in that scenario, you can lean Chase Brown and feel okay about it.
Yeah. All right. Give me 2 players right now who are flying under the radar as possible fantasy football playoff winners.
So the first one, I just mentioned tight end, and I think there's a lot of good tight ends who can be league winners going forward. Obviously, Tyler Warren's got a great schedule going forward. I think Darren Waller coming back could help a lot of people at being a big red zone threat. But the guy I'm mentioning is Juwan Johnson. The schedule's not great, but I don't think that matters. He's got a 15% target share playing with Tyler Shuck. He's running 75% of the routes. He's their only red zone weapon. When you think about it, scored, I believe, in 2 straight games. So they don't have anything else. It's Chris Olave and it's Juwan Johnson. He's like tight end 7, I believe, on the season. So he's available in 40% of Yahoo leagues currently. He's number 1 on somebody I would go out and make sure you could pick up. And you could start him going forward. No question.
I realized, so I published my sleeper show and I realized immediately after it published, I was like, oh my gosh, I had Juwan Johnson on my list for this week just because of what you talked about with his usage and stuff. And I just completely forgot to talk about him. So I'm throwing Juwan Johnson out there also for those of you who want to, I track my sleepers and stuff. We'll throw him out there as another play. All right. So Juwan Johnson, is there anyone else that you're looking at?
This one may get me kicked off the show. I'm going kicker.
Oh boy.
Kicker, baby. Let me tell you why. Kaimi Fairbairn. All right. He's only 52% rostered on Yahoo. He has a schedule with just 1 game outside of a dome for the rest of the season. Monster leg, offense that can easily stall out. This guy's always a top 5 kicker, and he's got 4 weeks already. He's hurt a little bit. He's had 4 weeks already, JJ, where he scored at least 14 fantasy points. If you're in a league that still plays in a kicker, and I know I got several of them, go look on your waiver wire because, listen, all the points matter. I read a streaming defenses article. Streaming defenses matter for the playoffs, and so does your kicker. So I was trying to rack my brain, like who could be different and unique. And listen, Ka'imi Fairbairn could give you an edge in the playoffs. And if he goes out and drops 18 on somebody in week 16, that's going to propel you to the next round. You can't overcome that when your kicker drops 15 plus points.
Look, my subscribers, like the people in the late round fantasy football Discord, are going to be overjoyed that you brought up a kicker because I don't do kicker rankings. And I told them over the summer I was going to build a kicker model, and I did not build that kicker model. And so yeah, I mean, I'm glad that someone on the show is giving kicker advice. That's good.
So the defensive streamer article I do at Fantasy Points, another gentleman, I believe it's Tom Simons, does a streaming kicker thing, and they just kind of like tack that onto it. Mm-hmm. But people think because it's mostly my article that like I do kicker, so I get a zillion kicker questions now. I'm like I don't know anything about this. Yeah. I just know Fairbairn's really good and he's available and he's going to play indoors for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's very funny. All right, before I let you go, give me one bold prediction for week 12.
All right, let's set social media on fire. Bold prediction for week 12. Shedeur Sanders throws for less than 150 yards, but the Browns win the game anyways because the Raiders offense is JV level bad. And then all you're going to hear about is Sanders getting the W, but his stat line, JJ, is going to be like 11 for 30 for 125, a touchdown and 2 picks. Sanders wins in his debut and does nothing. They're going to like return a punt for a touchdown and they're going to kick 6 field goals.
Yeah. Something insane, something ridiculous. I mean, look, his, I said this on the show earlier this week, his completion rate over expected last week on, 14 or however many attempts he had, 20 or like 16 attempts, was the second lowest of any quarterback this year. The lowest came after Shedeur played, and that was Jared Goff against your Eagles. That was the lowest completion percentage over expected this season.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Listen, I made a lot of money off Elon Musk with a Shedeur Sanders tweet that got like 4 million views. But that guy's a lightning rod for whatever reason. And listen, he's not ready to play. Neither is JJ McCarthy. Right. They both need reps. So we got to give the kid some grace because it's just, he was forced into things at Colorado. He's not that great. Yep. I said that when I was breaking down Travis Hunter coming out. I said, listen, he was catching jump balls from a terrible quarterback, but he's going to be in there and we'll see what he can do. I just don't think the Raiders defense is good enough to get after him because he does have a competent play caller and head coach. So I think they'll find ways to scheme around Shedeur Sanders. And hey, could be a big Quinshon Judkins week. Let's see what happens.
We'll see. Well, this was awesome, man. Let everyone know where they can find you, what you're working on, all that good stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. I'm on TikTok. I do a Sunday TikTok for Fantasy Pros. Yeah, I'm the old guy on there doing that. That's at Drake Fantasy. Instagram, Drake Fantasy Football. You can find me there. I do the Fantasy Points podcast with John Hansen every Monday. I do an article for The Huddle. I do articles for Sportskeeda. I do stuff for Fantasy Pros, some fun videos there. So I'm all over the place. I am whoring myself out. If you've got $1 and you need a guy to give you some bad fantasy content, come see your boy. Yeah. Because that's what I'm here for.
Love it. You can find all my stuff over on lateround.com. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@lateroundff. Otherwise, everyone, as usual, thanks for tuning in.
Hey everybody, Daniel Jeremiah here.
And I'm Bucky Brooks.
On Move the Six, we take you inside the game, from breaking down college prospects and NFL rookies
to evaluating team building philosophies, coaching trends, and how front offices construct winning rosters.
We study the tape, talk to decision makers, and give you a perspective you won't find anywhere else.
It's everything you need to understand the why behind what happens on Sundays.
Don't miss it. Listen to the Move the Sticks podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Marcus Grant,
And I'm Michael F. Florio, and together we host the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast.
Ready to dominate your fantasy league this season?
Then you need the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast, your ultimate source for player news, draft tips, and winning strategies.
Whether you're a rookie manager or a fantasy vet,
we've got the insight to help you crush your opponents.
Listen to the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast.